Hi, my name's Gary Turner, and I'm the host of the Activating Consciousness podcast. If you haven't joined us yet, I'd love for you to join us on your favourite podcast platform, whether that be Apple, Anchor, Spotify, or another. We've had 11 incredible conversations already during the first season. The second season is due to go live towards the end of May. And what I wanted to do today really was offer a reflective space. For every one of these conversations, I've used an incredible artist called Ana Dinardin, based down in Brazil, who's brought the messaging to life beautifully and impactfully. This podcast platform has been heavily supported by my good friend Samantha Suppiah, based down in the Philippines, and Lorraine Smith as well in Montreal, Canada. These three amazing human beings have really been my bedrock as I have sought to navigate and understand and embody and feel the world in a different way to what I had previously. Around the topics of regeneration, how do we create systems, life, products, ways of being that are more life-giving rather than extractive? And as somebody that works within the chemicals industry, this is a topic that I continue to navigate that tightrope with difficulty and with challenge at times, but at the same time realizing that we are where we are and that we have to operate from that place of presence right now in this moment. And indeed, to that end, there's a new live conversation I'm setting up as well called Right Here, Right Now, which is streaming to LinkedIn Live, Facebook, and to YouTube. So if you love in the moment flowy conversations live, those will be starting, or they have started already, but they will start to pick up in cadence as we go forward as well. And you may hear a little noise on occasion. It'll be my lovely little puppy, who's not so lovely at the moment if she is still in that chewing, biting phase. But this is pandemic life. So yeah, I'm keeping an eye on her at the same time as trying to record this today. So what I really want today's objective to be is to share with you, both in audio and video form, the range of different insights that have been shared by these amazing 11 human beings, in cases of value to you. I'm big on reflection, big on creating that space to slow down, to be still, to really feel, sense, and embody learning, something I continue to try and practice, and at times fail with as well. She's gone now. So let me get into it. I'm going to share my screen, and then hopefully what you'll be able to see will be the range of insights, incredible insights that have been shared and brought to life by Ana wonderfully. So here we go to share the screen. So in no particular order, where we're going to start is with Adrian Weatherall, who joined me on episode 6, and we really discussed the leveraging of our wholeness for collective and planetary gain. Pretty bold statement, but that's very much the direction of travel that we took. So what Adrian shared was that we sacrifice ourselves, our true beings, in order to simply put money on the table. And that's a hell of a trade-off when you really think about it. Why do we become other people? We're good enough as we are. Adrian also shared that we're becoming more awake, we're becoming more alive, we're becoming more aware of everything that we do on this planet. And we need to realize that business, society, community, personal relationships are all one. They're not separate entities. And this is one was particularly pertinent for me when I think about the work of the late David Graeber in his work Bullshit Jobs, where Adrian shared that there are leaders who are at the bottom on the shop floor who are showing their compatriots or their colleagues, this is the way to do it. We're not thanking them. We're not doing right by them. The whole thing needs an overhaul. And that really speaks to the systemic nature of this conversation and indeed how Adrian sees the world as well. Episode 7 was with Carl Kaliman, and we discussed the science of consciousness. This was such a rich exploration for me personally. And what Carl shared was that all life forms are expressions of consciousness. Small little bacteria are expressions of that evolution of consciousness. Carl also shared that the mind is not a product of the brain. The mind is something that the brain downloads from the cosmos. That changed human beings. Such a huge statement. I'd love to hear whether you agree, disagree, have any other thoughts you'd like to build on top of this reflection. Also, I enjoyed it where Carl shared that, I want to emphasize that this is a theory based on empirical evidence, on empirical science. There's some fascinating debates right now between, again, this is polarization, this belief that science is separate from spirituality, when of course everything is one, as Carl has already shared, and as Adrian already shared in episode 6 as well. Episode number 8, just I can't stop grinning when I think back to this conversation with Donna Jones and Stelio Versa, where we spoke about exploring a transcontextual coalescence. What words? Just beautiful words in and of themselves. But what Donna shared was that nature has got this phenomenally sophisticated technology. The planet has been resilient, been vibrant, it's been abundant for 4 point so many billion years. And yes, there have been cycles, but nothing like the cycle that we are now that man has accelerated. And when we break that down even more, the last 100 years in particular has accelerated. You know, when you think about 100 years in the scheme of 4 point something billion years, like that's exponential. That's truly exponential change. So something for us to be thinking about. Stelio shared that this may sound provocative, but I really believe it. We think too much. I think we think too much. The only thing we should be is ourselves. That is something that we do, not something that we have to think about. So rich. Stelio also shared that for a while he's been talking about coalescence and resonance. Two much more interesting things happening in complexity. What I see is transcontextual coalescence is happening, similar to the unity that Donna is describing. Stella also shared that maybe all we have done with technology, it is really useful, but to get us to the point where we can really have different views of things because we can really know what's going on in Africa, what is going on everywhere. You have the opportunity, if you want, to see things in a different way. And I love that last part of this quote. There's so much abundance of opportunity if we want to step into it, and if we can be vulnerable enough also to look inside of ourselves, I would say. Donna shared a really powerful quote, which was that if you stand at the intersection of a bifurcation where the old system collapses and the new one is in co-creation mode, I'd say we're in the co-creation mode. We're in the space where we can decide how we participate and what happens next. So much freedom and opportunity in that, but also can be pretty scary as well, depending on the stories that we tell ourselves. Donna also shared that this is the intersection where we also take things that look like they blow apart everything and instead use them to bring it together, which is much more challenging as a leadership role. You have to step into the deepest aspects of our character and conversation. Just blew my mind, that conversation. And another mind blower, personal friend and inspiration is Heather Younger, who joined me recently as we discussed the launch of her new book, The Art of Caring Leadership. What Heather shared was that caring leadership is showing concern and kindness for those we lead in consistent ways. It is showing it, expressing it, it's doing, not let's think. It's not an I feel. Your employees are the end users of your leadership. They decide if you're a caring leader. It just speaks so brilliantly to the inside out nature of our human experience. No matter what we say or do, we cannot control the reaction of somebody else. All we can do is show up. Just there's some real consistent themes that hopefully you're seeing and hearing those themes already throughout these conversations. Heather shared, if I had to boil it down to a kernel, it's about being intentional. We can't be caring leaders by accident. And I've heard many times that energy follows intention. So that may be another way to look at that. Also, Heather shared that we can't give what we don't have. We can't talk about recognition and listening if we don't listen to ourselves. If we don't give ourselves compassion. The least effective leaders moving towards this caring leadership journey are those that do not listen to themselves. Are you listening to yourself right now? Are you giving yourself grace to sense and feel into what's going on in your body and in the environment around you? So this is particularly important as well. I myself am trained in the thinking environment with the amazing Jane Adshead Grant. So if you could ever require some help thinking for yourself as yourself, free from interruption, for a period of 30 or 60 minutes, you can work with me in that capacity, something I've benefited from many times. And you can find that at my Calendly link, which you'll find in the podcast notes. I offer strategic advisory support, thinking partnership support, and also a range of workshops as well. So I'm really keen on helping people sense into listening to themselves and listening in teams as well. So if I can help you with that, do let me know. Episode number 4 was with the amazing Helen Amory. My God, we have both been on journeys over the last 5 years of knowing each other. Our podcast episode was called We Are Infinitely Creative, and she shared that very statement. We are infinitely creative, and we can create separations, difference, anywhere, and we can create any systems we want as well. Just think about that for a second. When we're looking at the racial injustice, when we're looking at the financial markets, when we're looking at what we have and what we don't have, like how much of that is linked to something outside of us, how much of it's linked to something inside of us. I'm always sitting in this tension between knowing there is a systemic joint up challenge, but also knowing that the change that we need to reimagine those systems actually comes from us in the moment. It's just fascinating, such a fascinating paradox and interplay. Helen also shared that in the absence of personal thought, there is no fear. Fear only comes with thought. Just stunning. Also, Helen shared, I don't see it as an activating of consciousness. We were talking about this podcast title. Helen sees it as a revealing, and that it's a thinning of our confusion that clarity that we already are gets revealed, like the metaphor of the sun and the clouds. So actually, through these conversations, we're revealing the innate consciousness that we are all part of already. I'm happy with that. I also like activating. But hey, revealing of consciousness, I really love where Helen's looking at. Another wow conversation, episode number 3, Seeking to Understand and Not Invalidate, with Rhys Byrne and Madison Butler. Wow. Get your impact ready. Get ready to feel these quotes because they are big. Rhys shared that I think it's super important to be open and listening to people's experiences. If the person is open to telling you about their story, listen to it, because that will give you a deeper insight as to why they identify a certain way. I want to stop here for a second because I have this debate with my family. I have this conversation with people in the workplace, in society, my network. Many people just can't get their head around the fact that people may want to identify outside of the dominant gender norms that currently exist. And it is complex. It is difficult to ratchet our head and our mind away from the preconditioned of it's A or it's B. But if Rhys tells you that they want to identify a certain way as they, ask why, understand it, research. They've got Rhys has got a LinkedIn profile. They've got their own profile, online presence. You can find out about Rhys anyway, even before asking the question of, do you mind me asking why you identify as they? Like, it's so important. So important, this statement. Madison shared that none of us want to admit that we hired a bunch of people who were exactly like us because it's what makes us feel comfortable. Just sit in that statement. Madison also shared that you build better products when you build for the stress case and not the test case. But people are yet to catch on to this for some reason. And I talk about this a lot personally, both in my own day job and wider life. Why do we seem to be obsessed with focusing on symptoms? Brilliant. Let's pay for this. Let's pay for that. Let's buy this. Let's buy that. Drugs, sex, money, whatever it is outside of our human experience. Let's buy more of that in the hope that inside we'll then feel we're good at some point. We'll still feel okay. We'll believe that we've done all that we possibly can. It's like, no. We need to be thinking about, as Madison shows so brilliantly, what's the most extreme example? Who's the person or people that are most ostracized based on the current system? How do we design for them? How do we ensure that they are included? Then everything else works. Powerful stuff. Rhys also shared, believe us when we tell our stories. You need to believe our experiences and learn from them. Do not invalidate another human being because it doesn't make sense, inverted commas, to you, is my invitation. Rhys, Madison, amazing humans. Please follow their work. Another wow. Episode number 9. Mr. Nan Chowdhury, founder and CEO of Jaipur Rugs. In the Business of Love is what we discussed. After a wonderful introduction to his history and the history of Jaipur Rugs, Nan shared that I often say we don't sell carpet, we sell family blessings. We sell experiences, we sell stories, and the carpet is free. A deeply spiritual statement, but one that's also really, really powerful when you think about value proposition. It's about the value that the receiver receives in exchange for, it might be money, it might be bartering or whatever. Like, it's just a beautiful, beautiful statement. And I love it, love it, love it. Mr. Chowdhury also shared, what I've learned in my life is that the destination comes from the mind, but direction comes from the heart. If you are not driven by love and compassion, then we have no direction. They just keep on coming. This one is amazing as well. I'm sure that anything in business, if it is not driven by love, is not going to sustain. You can replace love for whatever feels more comfortable for you. Care, consideration, empathy. Like, there's a lot of ways you can cut and slice this to spend, depending on the readiness of your stories and your thinking around this topic. But look at this with non-Chowdhury. Look at every single reflection I've shared with you so far, particularly back to Heather Young and the Art of Caring Leadership. I'm learning through this journey of activating consciousness, revealing consciousness, as Helen would say. We are innately included. We are innately loved. We are innately a singular energy source. We come from the same stuff. We just have been we've bought into and been handed down stories that tell us different. Nand also shared, too much knowledge developed without practice equals ego. Knowledge without practice can damage the business. Just think about the billions of thought leaders out there, and good luck to every single one of them. How many people are actually doing the work? How many people are actually got their hands dirty, as Brené Brown would say, are in the arena, doing the work, blood, sweat, and tears, and then also supporting? Question, I don't know. I myself am pleased to say that I'm one of those people that actually still works in corporate, a 3 billion plus turnover corporate, looking after 20 million worth of sales internationally, as well as looking after people culture. And also using my systemic understanding to aid not only the business I serve, but also organizations outside of that, 2 tech startups. And also now really grateful to be one of the caring leadership coaches with Heather Younger as part of her caring leadership community. Like, I'm intentionally staying within corporate so that I can both bring in this external world into the internal world of which I work, and at the same time I can bring real life practitioner experience, of which I have much and I continue to deliver day to day, into the rest of the world. Too much knowledge developed without practice equals ego. I think it's an important thing for us all to be staying considerate of. One of my personal inspirations, and again co-collaborators as part of this platform, is Samantha Suppiah. Amazing human being. She joined me for the first inaugural episode, The World Made Us, We Didn't Make the World. What did she share? She shared it's just so normal to give something an identity and to build the boundary of where that identity is. I love this challenge, this question. It's like the seasons. Every day is a different day. How can I expect to be the same person every single day? Sam's sort of testing, innovating, also allowing things to decay where they need to decay and allowing things to come into being. This is really profound. I've learned so much from Sam. She's one of my guides in my life, as alongside another coach that I invest in. So I invest in Sam, I invest in another coach, because I want to get that global perspective. I've Sam down in the Philippines, having a coach up here in Europe. And this decay piece is important because it can be decaying a belief. It can be decaying of, plants in your garden. It can be delaying of stories. Like, delaying, it doesn't always have to be a physical thing. It can be energetic. It could be so many different things. But do we hold on to the belief and the desire that something has to maintain for us, again, to be okay? I must have the money, the car, this job title, etc. And if that doesn't exist, therefore I am not good enough. It's such a common story. I certainly used to tell myself that. Every human system that exists on the planet today, there is nothing without injustice. Powerful statement. I don't see any other reason for living, says Sam, if it weren't for doing what I do. That sounds like a mission-driven human being to me. I really hope you go and connect with Sam. She also shared that I want to be able to try out different things every day of my life to see if I'm becoming that person. Sam again joined me alongside Lorraine Smith, another co-collaborator, and it was Through the Eyes of Fish was this conversation. You really have to listen in to understand more about this title. But what Lorraine shared was that it's really interesting. There's some really interesting literature that would say that the beginning of the Industrial Revolution was not the steam engine. It was the plantation economy, and that was based on, of course, slave labor. Deep, deep, deep insight. Lorraine also shared that if we have an even bigger challenge when we ask, what does it look like to finance regeneration? Regeneration does not sit in a world of scarcity. Regeneration lives in a world of connection, collaboration, and abundance. We are talking about financing the end of the finance industry. Just think about that for a second. Sam shared that from the plantation economy to the birth of the slave trade, a very specific, conscious decision was taken by a very specific group of influential people. These are the sites of cultural evolution. And when I want to take a pause here a second, as a white male in Europe, I've had some difficult conversations and realizations in recent months. I'm sitting in a beautiful home in a relatively privileged part of the world, and I'm directly benefited from these hundreds of years of oppression and slavery of which other human beings have been dehumanized. It's not my fault. It's totally not how I would have wanted to end up where I've ended up, but I am where I am. And as I become more aware and conscious, and that's part of my own personal development through this activating consciousness journey, is how can we leverage our relevant positions to bring those people in from the margins, to amplify the voice of those doing good work, to support those that are moving towards more regenerative ways of being, leading and developing and building community. So this is really, really powerful for me. Sam also shared that the answer to the paradox for me is collapse. There is no way we are transitioning. There is no such thing. We are going to be pushed to breaking point, then start again. Profound stuff. Lorraine also shared that let your mind go into the most beautiful places because our mind is endlessly regenerative. There the power is limitless. Go there with your colleagues, your family, your pets. Episode number 2 with Sigrid Dyberg-Krojewski, wonderful human being, global communications director of Delivery Hero, a really fascinating company. Slowing down to unleash the power of difference was what I titled this conversation. What Sigrid shared was that differences can cause a lot of collaboration. Differences can also cause a lot of friction, but in friction you have innovation. What a statement. If you wanted a more value add statement around the value of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, there it is. There it is. You want innovation. Nature thrives on diversity. Organizations thrive on diversity. I would actually go one step further and say, in the absence of this friction, we rely on mergers and acquisition. Okay, some could say you can have both, but my provocation, my question is, M&A is a lazy way of avoiding building diverse organizations. That's my in the moment, right here, right now reflection. Sigrid also shared that we have an onboarding buddy for everybody that joins who is not their direct lead or part of the direct team, but someone who you can just ask questions to, like, what's the best approach if I want to bring up a new suggestion to my boss? What a wonderfully conscious way to bring in new people to the organization. I absolutely love that. We have to let other people shine, but take the hit if something goes wrong. But ultimately, it is about empowering people to do their best work in the way that they see fit. Conscious organizations, well-designed organizations will unleash human potential and they will get more of everything they could ever desire. It's as simple as that. I'm very, very sure and know through a 3-year experiment that I led where we increased sales by 6 million and margin by 1.5. Same people, same market dynamics, nothing else changed. Just how we led ourselves and organized around more of a self-managed approach to our work. Episode 10, again, Lorraine, Sam back with another amazing human being in Marie-Pierre Bilodeau. And this is a really interesting chat with Marie-Pierre speaking about food growing is the glue that holds communities together. I feel this might be key to affect real change in all kinds of communities. And I wonder if you, like me, during the last 12 months, we're realizing that, my God, you can't always get everything that you need from the supermarket on the shelf at exactly where you want it anymore. There are delays in shipping. The global supply chain is failing. And we're not buying stuff locally as much as we should otherwise do, as in within local communities. So it's really powerful reflection, this for me personally. Lorraine shared, how can I contribute to helping reorient global industrial systems so that they can heal people and ecosystems? That is what I do. Marie-Pierre shared, I'm still in total exploration phase. It is okay to be vulnerable and to express to other people that we don't have it all figured out. Nobody does. If you're interested in this topic of vulnerability, I led the Value Through Vulnerability podcast, again for 138 episodes on your favourite podcast platform. Marie-Pierre also shared, I did things out of love and intention and did not care about it having this great impact, yet it did. The more you surround yourself with different cultures, you realise it isn't all linear and time orientated. Lorraine also shared, I'm having some uncomfortable conversations around scale within regeneration. I have come to cringe at the word scale, even if it is a good solution. If we don't even know what love is, we are measuring things that should not be measured. Boop. Mic drop moment, potentially there. And that brings us to the end of the first 11 episodes of Activating Consciousness. That whistle-stop tour, I hope, brings huge, huge, huge value to you. Just going through that exercise again for me brought huge, huge value. And I really think that the time is now. The time really is now for us to step into our humanity. And if you require any assistance to do that, I would love to invite you to check out my Calendly page. You can find me at calendly.com, Gary Turner, Strategic Advisor, one word. And what you'll find there is a range of options where you can work with me one-to-one with a thinking partnership session, with a strategy session. You can also find via the Caring Leadership community access to me there as well. Also doing 30-minute thinking partnership sessions and strategy sessions. Also offering half and full day workshops, keynote talks, and of course, looking forward to finding more guests for this particular platform. So do reach out. Again, if you could gain value from someone that's been working internationally for over 20 years, understands people, systems, and culture intimately, continues to be a practitioner in that space, but also wishes to help the world heal individually and collectively, find me at LinkedIn, find me on my YouTube channel, Gary Turner, Strategic Advisor. Find me on Activating Consciousness. You can find me on the Value Through Vulnerability podcast. I hope you're well. Stay safe. I really hope that you enjoy these reflections. We have season 2, coming up towards the end of May with a range of awesome guests, more amazing, awesome guests. You can see, for those that can see, I'm in my gym top. I'm about to go and do a Peloton run, bike ride, because I've been off the bike for 10 days after damaging my foot chasing that dog. So I'm Gary Turner, strategic advisor, humanist, and passionate person around reconnecting each one of us to ourselves, to one another, to nature at large. I continue to be work in progress. We always will be, but together we can turn this stuff around. Much love to you one and all. Stay safe, do connect, be well.